Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about The Penguin, episode 3. It's called Bliss. So spoilers for the episode as always. So this was a great episode again. The show really feels confident. It feels like the writing each episode is doing a good job of feeling like a full chapter of a story. Whereas, and what I mean by that is that, it sets things up early in the episode that it pays off by the end. So while there's obviously a larger ongoing story going on, each chapter on its own feels fulfilling. And it's something that I really criticize shows that get put out in binge style for. A lot of Netflix shows are really bad at that, where they just don't even bother structuring properly. And it actually makes them feel longer than shows that used to have 22 episodes, because everything just feels like it runs on into the next thing. Here, this story probably gives more focus than anything to Vic, and sort of setting up a little bit of his life before the tragedy at the end of the Batman movie, and what his life was like then, and like the girlfriend that he had, who does appear again in the present day part of the timeline. I actually really like the sequence at the start of this episode, set just before those explosions go off, and you get to see Vic with his parents a little bit. And it sets up some key things that play thematically throughout the entire episode, and the choices that character makes throughout the episode. The idea that his dad doesn't like the idea of anyone who works with gangs and criminals, which, isn't an unsympathetic point of view for a character to have. But you also have Vic kind of arguing that his dad should be charging more money for whatever it is he said. I forget what it was now. I think it was parts for something. But he's like, no, like, the price is fine, like, we're happy with what we have. But Vic's like, hey, don't you want more than this? And it's this idea that even before he met Penguin, and even though he's scared all the time, there was a part of Vic that did want more than what his family had. And it comes up throughout the episode, throughout this idea that his dad was a chef, and he loved cooking, he loved food, but he never got to be in a restaurant as nice as the one that Penguin takes him to. And that's kind of sad, and it really sets up this idea of, like, Vic actually reaching for something. So a lot of this episode is about the push and pull of, like, does he choose to go with his girlfriend who's leaving for California, or is he going to stay with the Penguin? And when the question is first raised to him by her, it's very much a, oh no, I'm scared because Penguin might kill me if I try and leave. And certainly when he was introduced, Penguin kind of was having him at gunpoint. It felt like he was entrapped. But as Penguin even kind of reacts later in the episode to, like, this choice that he now has, Penguin's actually offended that Vic thinks that he's trapped there with him, that he's been held hostage, that he's not allowed to leave. It's like, no, Vic, you've got so much potential being with me. You can't see that, then that's on you. You don't deserve this life if you can't see that, kind of thing. That's kind of the reaction he has. Like, at this point, Penguin's past that I'm holding you captive, and is more just, he sees something in him that he's trying to foster or whatever. And I think that it's... I think the decision to, by the end of the episode, have Vic make the choice to stay, not because he's scared of Penguin and not because he misses his chance and he doesn't quite get to the bus station in time. Having him look at her go on the bus and make the choice to turn back on his own, I think was the best option for the storytelling of the character, for setting up, like, him having his own agency, him doing something because he wants it, because he's got drive. And so much of this show is about the drive of the characters, right? I mean, that wasn't technically all storytelling is to a point, but I mean, in this show in particular, there's this sense of ambition that they all have. And by all, I mean the three main characters, who I will definitively say at this point are Penguin, Vic, and Sophia. They all have aspirations. They all have something they want to get out from and rise up from. Sophia's a little bit different because she's kind of this overlooked person from within the super criminal empire. Penguin's someone who had to sort of, like, scrap and get what he wanted for himself and do all the things that he's done to achieve it. And he's kind of trying to inspire that in Vic, who's coming from a place where that wasn't encouraged, where that was... Now, obviously, yes, in a real world sense, you wouldn't want to encourage that in someone because it's the criminal life. But the point is that it really sets up this idea that he does want more. It also establishes a strained relationship, or at least the girlfriend didn't like this guy Squid in the flashback at the start, before all the bombs go off, who, I recognize this actor. He was on a very good show that was on Netflix called Travelers. It was a co-production that they did with a Canadian TV station, so that actually was a super well-paced episodic TV show. It had 3 seasons. I would recommend it. It did technically get cancelled before whatever ending they had planned, but bizarrely, it still kind of worked as an ending where it did end. It kind of felt like the end of an act in a way that it's still very much worth watching. I don't think it's obviously there's a lot left open at the end, but it still feels like a thematic close in a lot of ways. So I would recommend Travelers, but that's Jared Abrahamson that plays Squid. He was in that show. You only see him briefly here, but as soon as I saw him, I went, wait a minute, I know that guy. I love seeing this perspective, though, of all these explosions going on around Gotham from Vic's perspective, and this idea that he literally saw the wave of water going towards his family's apartment. Because as soon as he said he was going to go watch the fireworks or whatever from the roof, I'm like, oh, this is why he survived. Because he's going to be on the roof. Like, everyone they know is going to be dead. So, super, happy with that. I think it looked cool. I think there's a lot of really nice little moments of direction in this, especially in Vic's story. Later on, when they're in the nightclub and he's selling the new drug, or he's been the bagman for the girls to sell the drug, and the cam girl, whose name I don't remember, but she's the cam girl who works with Cake sometimes. She seems to be taking a liking to him and wants to dance with him. And I thought, and as that was starting, that was going to be like a temptation thing where, he literally has the choice to go and run away with his sweetheart childhood girlfriend that's leaving for California. But part of the attraction of staying here is you've got someone like, again, cam girl. I'm sorry, it's not Roxy, is it? Is it Alice? I don't know. There's a lot. They're all low down in the cast list. I can't see the images well enough right now to know who it is. But her like sort of like reaching out to him, I thought in the moment was going to be that type of like, oh, you have other options here. Not so much like a permanent relationship per se, but this idea, is this life the one you want, where someone like this is engaging in some attraction with you or whatever. And instead it actually goes a very different way, where he actually kind of like, because this is getting too close to the sun, as it were, and the lights in the club start sort of doing these big light flashes around, and it basically brings out PTSD of the explosions the night his parents died, where he starts to have a breakdown and he drops the bag. And I thought that scene was really well directed, the way it would sort of like have the flash of light, and it really instantly reminded you of those explosions at the start. And then the way it kind of played around with it, with actually intercutting a little bit of the actual stuff as he was sort of freaking out. I thought that was all good. And then, of course, the big culmination, other than his decision to come back, is the confrontation with Penguin, where Penguin sees the phone, demands to see it because it buzzes again. He's aware that Vic's been paying attention to it all night, and he's like, you running away with my money? And we have this big scene play out where he says, you could have something better here, blah blah blah. He's angry at him. He's like, if you want to go, then just go. But he holds a gun up to his head at one point and says, is this how you feel being with me all the time? You feel like you've got a gun to your head? Like, he's offended by that, which is funny because like that's kind of how the relationship started. But Penguin's making it clear that it's evolved beyond that. And, scenes throughout the episode where he's taking him to a nice restaurant, he's proud of him for how he handled the cop that came up to talk to him when he was sitting in the car with all the drugs, by basically letting the cop take his money as a bribe. He was, thinking quick on his feet. And because the episode started with Vic's life before all of this stuff, showing him actually think on his feet like that, because that's what he failed to do last episode, when the whole stuff with the jewels in the car, when he got caught, all he did was run. And that may have been the only choice he really had anyway, but like there was no like thinking his way out of it. There was no rolling with the punches or anything like that. Whereas with this moment with the cop, he does think on his feet, and he's like, maybe I can be good at this. There's these little signs that maybe, just maybe, that can be a thing. And then on Vic as well, just this idea that we had him like be one-on-one with Sophia for a quick little scene, and him being absolutely terrified of her, and she's like pointing out that, oh, you're like a mechanic but you can't work a lighter, and just sort of like really staring daggers into him the way that Sophia does was fun. I think the other thing that I think is really important from a grander show perspective, I want to really mention, there's a moment in the dinner or the restaurant scene where Penguin's talking to Vic, and the waiter comes over and says, oh, you ready for your orders? And Penguin orders whatever he's ordering, and Vic stutters, right? And this is something we've established by this point, is that he stammers when he's nervous. He was doing it with Sophia. He does it multiple times throughout this episode. And he does it here with the waiter. And he's trying to say steak, was it steak freeze? How I say he was trying to say? Honestly, I was too caught up in the like everything else to even care about what the word was. But he couldn't get the end of the order out. And the waiter, jumps in after like 10 seconds or whatever and sort of finishes the sentence as if, oh, is that what you're asking for? And Penguin interjects and says, no, don't do that. Let the man speak. And then we wait another 10 seconds or whatever until Vic finally gets the sentence out. And at first it almost felt like it's Penguin being cruel by trying to like make him like sort of force his way into be more confident to get over his stammer. Is that what he's doing here? Even if it feels kind of mean. But I actually really love what he said. Once the waiter leaves, Penguin says to him, make them wait. You're important, right? Fill up the room, fill up the space, make them wait for you. This does not like take away from you, make them wait for you. And one, it's such an insight into the way Penguin thinks about him, or at least what he wants for himself. He wants to be respected. And one of the things that he's going up against in this episode is that every time he butts heads with Sophia kind of puts him back into his place and says, no, you're back to being my driver. No, you're working for me. We're not partners. So, you do this, blah, blah. Like, she keeps sort of like trying to define their relationship in that way throughout the episode. And it's obviously a big thing about Penguin's drive in this show, like I was saying, his aspirations and what he wants to do. But the part that really stuck out to me is when he says, own it. Have it be your thing. Don't be ashamed of it. Own it. And I think that's the moment where I kind of, and especially later on, because when they do the whole thing with Viti later on, with the catch him in bed, and Viti calls him the Penguin, and he like gets angry and shoves the phone in his mouth and gets really pissed off about it. Which is, it's actually just entertaining, not because it's a big moment for Penguin, but because watching Sophia just like watch this and kind of take it in and see what's making Penguin tick, because she's still trying to sort of figure him out. She's not just trusting him blindly just because she agreed to work with him last episode. She's still questioning things. She's still paying attention. She's still looking very closely and considering what the options are. But I think between the conversation with Vic about owning the stutter and owning who you are, and then this moment where he actually freaks out and like does not like that someone calls him the Penguin, it would be the equivalent of someone making fun of Vic's stutter. And I wonder if he comes to the realization on his own, or dare I say, does Vic actually say to him at some point in this season where he basically just gives Penguin's advice back to him and says, own it. Be the Penguin. Make them respect the word penguin. Like right now it's a mocking term. They call you that to make fun of you because it's entertaining, because it's humiliating, because they want to put you down and make themselves feel bigger. But if you're going to achieve power, then own what you are. And I think, like, I think I said in the first review of episode 1 that, I expected by the end of the show he is going to sort of take that name and actually want to use it, as opposed to it just being this thing that's said to mock him behind his back, or in this case, in this episode, to his face. But he gets really upset. It's all very good. Really like that, and that kind of leads us into the Sophia and Penguin sort of partnership. Basically we get this idea of this drug. It's called Bliss. It's like the sap that grows on this mushroom or something. The specifics or whatever. We find out that they gave it to the patients in Arkham to keep them calm, docile, whatever. Takes all the pain away. But the real intrigue here is like how they're going to distribute this, and it's up to Cobblepot here. Technically he's Cobb. He's still called Oswald. His mother did call him Oswald last episode, so it's just Oswald Cobb as his official name. I'm still going to, obviously I usually just call him Penguin, but occasionally the word Cobblepot might come out just because that's what he is. It's what I know. I can't change it. But he has the idea to go to, I think, the Triads it is, and Sophia's a bit weird about this because, hey, there's some history with the Falcons and the Triads. That might not go so well. And of course, the leader of the Triads ends up being Francois Chow, who I know from Lost primarily, but he's been in other things as well. I knew his face instantly. He doesn't show up until later in the episode, though. We get kind of like the sub-boss first. But they don't like Penguin. Penguin owes the money, but he comes in with this sort of deal and says, hey, we've got an opportunity for you to get involved in something. And basically, the guy kind of says, like, you're just doing this on your own. And they say, no, we've got support from within the family. Right? At least Penguin says that. And Sophia sort of gives him a quick glance. Like, she sees Penguin making up a lie on the spot to make this more convincing, and she has to kind of roll with it. And Penguin's the one that says, yeah, Johnny Vitti, he's in line with us. He's going to be on our side. And Sophia, like, looks over at him. And this comes quite soon after as well. A scene with Johnny Vitti came to Sophia when she was out seeing Penguin at the start of the episode and said, hey, get on that plane to Italy, or that's where I'll tell me you went. Basically threatening to kill her and try to put her in her place. Like, the relationship between her and Vitti's not in a good place. But Penguin interjects here and says, no, Vitti's on our side. And she plays along with it and says, yeah, like, he's not supporting Penguin, he's supporting me. We're very close. And again, it's a lie, but she's sort of taking what Penguin said and rolling with it, which is really funny to see, because Penguin does lie a lot, and she's like sort of like playing tennis with him here to make it seem convincing. But what I like about that is that as soon as Penguin says his name, we know why he says that name. We know Penguin has leverage on him against the boss, right? He's got photographs of Vitti with the boss's wife, and that's why he's picked him, because he knows he's got something that he can blackmail him with to make him do what he wants. So we know that as the audience, but Sophia doesn't, and we're seeing her be kept on her toes, which is fun from watching her work it out, but it also adds a little bit of distrust for her, because once again, the man that she's supposedly working with is keeping things from her, and that's one of the things she wants to get away from by overtaking the family and getting rid of the status quo. So I thought there was just a lot of layers going on there to that scene. It was just fun. And I really liked the chemistry between them afterwards, because when the guy leaves to go and like take a call or whatever, like, she's like, what the hell are you doing? And Penguin turns to her and says, admit it, you're having fun. Like, there's a part of him that really enjoys spinning these plates and getting people to do what he wants and manipulating people and playing the game and going up the ranks. Like, he enjoys the thrill of it. It's a little bit like Saul Goodman enjoying a con job in Better Call Saul. He kind of enjoys it and gets something out of it. The idea that he comes up from where he started and is able to outsmart someone who thinks they're better than him is a thrill for him. And I think in some level, Sophia gets a little bit of that here, but at the same time is feeling kept at arm's length, and that will also make her feel mistrusting of him. So I like the layers here at all this. And of course, you know, Penguin's at the restaurant with Vic because he's going to go over and talk to the wife, who of course the Don's wife doesn't want this affair to be found out, because it's not like her life's going to be any easier for her. So yeah, it turns out that Sophia knows about the affair by the time they walk in on him at the hotel or whatever it is, because she's like prepared for it. And honestly, her performance, Milioti's performance, as she like is just like got a smirk in her face and she's like telling the wife to not forget her panties. The way she's just sort of gleefully enjoying the position of power in this room, as Vitti's, you know, basically saying, "Hey, don't you dare tell the boss any of this." And there, he's like, "Yeah, you're going to phone this triad guy. And you're going to tell him directly that you're in support of what we're doing." And he's like, "You know, why would I do that?" And then it obviously gets to the point where, one, he tries to sow mistrust between Penguin and Sophia by pointing out that Penguin was the one that effectively turned her in to Carmine. By the sounds of it, the details were a little bit shaky, but the way he went from just being her driver, and there was some comparisons with that early on with how Vic is now Penguin's driver. Like Penguin's got that for himself, but then she immediately says, "No, you're going to be my driver tonight, Oz," just like old times. And the awkwardness that comes from that of Oz being put back in his place that he's kind of gotten away from. But this scene where he freaks out at being called Penguin and shoves the phone in his mouth and gets really angry. Again, it's that little moment where like Sophia gets to see him being real. Like, this is something that Penguin really feels, and this is a big moment for him. He's losing control, but yeah, performances were great in that sequence. It was great to watch. And the payoff to all this, obviously there's some little bits while they're talking to the actual triad boss, who's Feng Zhao, his name is, where they're trying to make this deal, and he's a bit hesitant because it's opening up a lot of worms by going against the Falcons, and he doesn't really want to do it. Sophia there's a couple of moments where Penguin interjects and sort of tries to convince him of things, and Sophia seems to be a little bit annoyed that he's even saying anything, because she tried to make it clear beforehand that, hey, he's here to see me, and you work for me, remember that, you know? And she, like, so, but it all bubbles over, though, to where she leaves the room and says, either make the deal or don't, but if not, we're going elsewhere. And Penguin off camera makes the deal. We don't even see the end of the deal. It works, right? And part of how it works is because she mentioned that in Arkham she took it as part of this, like, getting away your emotions kind of thing. But the big scene really is the scene where they're outside after all this has went down, and Penguin's out to talk to her, and she did ask him earlier in the episode about, why he kind of like turned on her and like ratted her out or whatever. And here he actually kind of finally opens up and says, all right, you know what? I effed you over. I did this thing. And she, like, berates him a little bit and says, wait, so you did all that? And it's not even like you became a made man. Yeah, you got a bit more power from Carmine Falcone, but you're not like that high ranking. It's not that great. It's not that special. And Penguin, again, much like last episode, where letting out some honesty kind of made it feel more real and sort of like at least made it feel like the bond was more real, even though Penguin, a couple of times in this episode, clearly does make it sound like, the partnership with her is temporary. Like, one day he'll cut her loose when the time is right. But he's honest and says, no, I mean, maybe it's not a big deal to you, but from what I came from, I didn't have anything, right? I was just a driver. That's all I was. I came from nothing. And after doing what I did for you, which I thought was best for you because you seemed like you needed help, I didn't know that Falcone was going to send you to Arkham. I didn't know he would do that to his own daughter. But doing that got me the job of, like, owning and running the Iceberg Lounge. I got to run the club. I got to run distribution. I became relatively important, and I might not be a made man, but I made a lot of money, more than I ever have before. And like, I'm not like ashamed of that success. That meant a lot to me, and I actually achieved something. I'm sorry what happened to you. I feel bad about that, but I'm not sorry for what I got out of it. And I think that honesty is, again, maybe it's calculated honesty where he knows he needs to do this to sort of try and win her over. Maybe is that a thing where Penguin always feels like he's making a desperate ploy to like claw something back. Again, it's that feeling of spinning plates. But it does feel like she's reacting to this and sort of has some respect for him admitting that he had this drive. And she even pointed out earlier in the episode, like, I'm not sure who wants this deal more, me or you. And he kind of says, oh, I want it for you. But no, he does want this. He arguably does want it more than her, because he has goals. He has these dreams. And it's a sort of thing where maybe he could work side by side with Sophia forever. I don't think that's what's going to happen, though. I think ultimately he will betray her and take it for himself, or she, maybe something will go down with her that'll change the relationship or whatever. I don't know, but I don't see it being this happy partnership that goes into the sun, certainly. But regardless, this scene is also great. This felt like a great payoff to their story. I think much like last episode, I think all three main characters benefited from their time in this episode. It developed all of their stories. It developed kind of like their fears and their concerns and what's making them tick a little bit, and took forward this idea of, like, even in this new relationship, there's moments where Sophia feels like Penguin's taking charge and it's making her feel like she's not the important one. But at the same time, she's understanding him better. Penguin, this idea of owning the name and what he's actually driving for, and Vic, of course, gets the lion's share in this episode, which is actually really good, because last episode it was really Penguin and Sophia that got the lion's share, arguably Sophia specifically. So I really like that they've taken time to really flesh out these three characters, and I feel like each episode has really done a lot to enrich them. And I think even simple little things like the scenes with Victor and his girlfriend when she comes to see him at Penguin's place, I really want to point out that that's the type of scene that in a lot of TV shows, even if I really like the show, having the guest star come in and there might be the one that's going to make the character want to leave the show and go run off with them, those scenes tend to be the weakest in a lot of shows, because it's like, one, it's a guest star, it's a character that we only have for a couple of scenes with one purpose, so they serve their purpose and they go. But I want to compliment that I actually did feel chemistry between them. It did feel like a genuine kind of sweet relationship that he has an option to go and pursue that with her. It sold the idea of the decision that he makes to not go. And then, of course, when he drives back, with Penguin's car no less, which he took to the bus station, he sees that by this point, that Avasarala, what's her name in this? Nadia Maroney. She was Avasarala in The Expanse, for anyone who doesn't get that. But she shows up with some armed men and says, we've been watching you, Penguin, you think you can screw us over? And of course, Sophia was just maybe starting to trust him, and she's like, what's this? Vic drives in and like kills one of their guys with the car. Penguin gets in. He's a bit disorientated at first, and Penguin tells Vic to drive off. He says, what about Sophia? And he says, leave her. I don't know how Penguin's going to explain that next episode to Sophia. But I suppose the question is what are they going to do with Sophia? Are they going to tell Sophia what they know, completely obliterating any relationship that was starting to kind of form between them? This partnership might be dead in the water before it's even begun. I really don't know. The cliffhanger does feel like a big potential shock to what's going on. Or alternatively, you know, maybe they kidnap Sophia or something. Maybe they do some bad stuff. Maybe Penguin ends up getting to play hero and like rescuing her or something. I don't know. But or maybe he just talks her out of it by like convincing the Maronis to leave be. But yeah, the Maronis are probably pissed because he's making all these deals with this drug, which was supposed to be, you know, with them. That was kind of what he promised them. I want to point out as well, I don't think I said this last time, but I was getting the feeling last episode that Nadia Maroney was kind of like the Sophia of that family, and that she was the bullshit detector, but seemingly is also kind of high ranking. She feels like she's quite important. That said, she still gets overruled by Salvatore Maroney in the prison scene last episode. So, you know, I do wonder, maybe having her and Sophia share some scenes together next episode, potentially, could be quite enlightening in terms of like Sophia looking at what could be an older version of herself, and maybe it'll make Nadia Maroney reflect a little bit. It'll make Sophia maybe consider what she's actually wanting a little bit. I know that we could play with that next episode. There's definitely potential. So, yeah, it was a very good episode. Again, honestly, the show is 3 for 3. I think I have had very little to complain about. You know, the pacing in the first episode, because it was a bit longer, did feel a little bit stuffed in the middle. But otherwise, it's been 3 very solid shows that have all developed the characters more each episode. To be honest, at the point now, at the end of episode 3, I do feel like all 3 main characters are super well defined. And they've all got stuff going on that going into the next episode, I'm excited about where the character growth is going to go, and like decisions they're going to make in a way that only good TV writing gets me. And I don't know if I was expecting that from this show going into it. I had obviously, you know, hopes. I was optimistic. I didn't go in thinking it was going to be bad, but I don't think I was expecting this level of quality. And it's going to be so funny when Penguin's in the second Batman movie and he's had all this like development between the 2 movies. He's going to feel like the most fleshed out, and like he's going to be like someone that you almost want to cheer for when you see him, because you've bonded with the character so much throughout the TV show. It's one of the weird things about saving Batman for just the movies, but getting like 1 or 2 of the side characters this much development elsewhere. It's a really weird imbalance in a lot of ways, but it's compelling. So yeah. So I expect we'll see Squid again. The sort of the low down criminal that Vic knew before all this went down. I suspect he's still around, and we'll see him again. I think that's why they've cast someone, not like a big star, but someone that I recognized in the role, because he is going to be around again. So, anywho, that's my thoughts on episode 3 of The Penguin. You can, of course, let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments. And of course, you can support all the stuff that we do here at MailFuzz TV and MailFuzz Movies over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. I wouldn't be able to do all the reviews I do without the support over there, or via YouTube membership if that's more your thing. But Patreon sort of gets you the bonus content for both channels, which is why I always recommend it. But if you want to specifically support YouTube or MailFuzz TV on YouTube, you can do that as well. But thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?